Okay, let's begin with a boy. A beautiful, golden, eternally child-sized boy, who is also a demigod, also a saint, also the most powerful sorcerer alive, also somehow the most tragic figure in an entire universe, full of tragic figures, which is saying something because this universe's Casual Tuesday involves maggot gods and cosmic wombs, and an eclipse that turns people into zombies. This isn't a low bar. And yet, Miquella clears it. He clears it the way you clear a puddle, by accidentally falling face first into the Mariana Trench. Miquella is the son of Marika and Radagon, who, and I need you to stay with me here, are the same person. His mom and dad are one individual, who apparently had an existential crisis, and decided the solution was gender, and also children. This means Miquella's parentage is, philosophically speaking, the divine equivalent of someone being their own uncle. The lands between said, what if family trauma but make it ontological? And Miquella was the answer. He was born, essentially, from a god arguing with themselves, same as all of us, really. Now, you'd think being the son of the most powerful deity in the known cosmological order would come with perks, health insurance, immortality, a decent-sized room in the Erdtree, and it does, mostly, except for the one thing, the curse of unending youth. Miquella cannot grow up. He is locked, permanently, irrevocably, in the body of a child, while inside that body is a mind that is, according to every single piece of lore that touches him, the sharpest, most dangerous, most compassionate intellect in the entire game. He sees everything. He understands everything. He feels everything. And he is stuck, looking 12 years old while doing it. The lore is doing something. Whether FromSoft intended it or not, they probably did. The sadists. Miquella's condition is a precise metaphor for the violence of being perceived incorrectly, of the gap between internal reality and external legibility, of the exhausting, isolating experience of being seen as less than what you are. But also he created an entire new religion, so we're going to talk about that too. The needle, the curse, and the absolute audacity of DIY theology. So Miquella looks at his situation, cursed, small, unable to grow, trapped in a body that doesn't match his interior, and he does what any reasonable genius demigod child saint would do. He decides to fix it himself. Not fix himself, mind you, fix everything. Because here's the thing about Miquella that separates him from every other cursed tragic figure in this universe. He doesn't wallow. He doesn't accept. He doesn't kneel before the order of things and whisper, I suppose, this is my lot. He looks at a cosmological system built by a god who is literally his parent, a system that has cursed him and his twin sister Malenia, also cursed, also divine, also catastrophically powerful, also incredibly sad. And he says, with the energy of someone writing a strongly worded letter to the universe's hoe, I'm going to make a new one. He crafts the unalloyed gold needle, a tool designed to separate flesh from the influence of the Erdtree, to create a space outside divine order, where curses cannot function. He grows Haligtree, an entire tree from scratch, through sheer will and magic, as an alternative site of grace for those rejected by the Erdtree. The rot-afflicted, the cursed, the forgotten, the ones the Golden Order decided were not worth saving. He basically opened a free clinic that is also a giant magical tree, in a universe of gods who use people as chess pieces. This man is out here doing actual mutual aid. And this is where it gets philosophically complicated, in a way that I think we don't talk about enough. Because there's a word for what Miquella is doing, and that word is ideology. He isn't just rejecting the system, he's building a counter-system. And every counter-system, no matter how compassionate its origins, carries within it the seed of the thing it opposes. Because systems require believers, and believers require persuasion, and persuasion, when done by someone with Miquella's particular skill set, looks a little bit like something else. One quick question. At what point does a compassionate alternative to an authoritarian order become its own authoritarian order? At what point does I will save you become you belong to me? At what point does the liberator become the next chain? This is not a gotcha. This is the actual thesis of Miquella's existence. The lore is asking it. We just have to be willing to hear it. He made a whole tree for the sick and forgotten. He also made people love him. Were these the same project? The cocoon, in which a child god becomes an egg, and nothing gets less weird. Miquella, having built his counter-religion, and his alternative divine tree, and his golden needle, and done more before adulthood than most immortals do in millennia, eventually decides that none of this is enough. Because he still can't grow up, so he does the only logical thing. He seals himself inside a giant cocoon, in the roots of Erdtree, and tries to grow himself into godhood, through sheer willpower, an arcane metabolic process, leaving behind, and this is the part where I need you to really feel this, leaving behind his own golden flesh, which continues to emanate love and devotion to everyone nearby, as he sleeps. His unconscious body is so full of divine love that proximity to it makes people devoted to him. He is literally radiating parasocial attachment while asleep. This is the most millennial influencer thing that has ever happened in a video game. He left his passive charisma on, like someone leaving a tab open that's playing music, like leaving your away status on in a Discord server, except the server is a religious order, and the away status is unconscious golden cocoon child, and the music is involuntary emotional devotion that restructures people's entire value systems. He accidentally ran a cult while sleeping, and honestly, respect. But let's not let the comedy obscure the horror of what's actually happening here. Because people, real devotees, followers who came to Erdtree seeking healing, seeking sanctuary, seeking the alternative to the Golden Order's cruelty, they stayed, they waited, they organized themselves around the sleeping body of a boy who could not consent to being their center of worship because he was in a cocoon. This is the structure of every ideology ever built around an absent founder. The founder disappears, whether into death, exile, transcendence, or in this case, a literal chrysalis, and the followers are left holding the vision without the person. And what fills that gap is not the person, it's the followers' projection of the person. It's what they needed the person to be, and that projection, over time, becomes more real to them than the actual person ever was. Miquella's followers in Erdtree are not devoted to Miquella. They are devoted to their idea of Miquella. He won't even be able to recognize his own religion when he wakes up. If he wakes up. He doesn't, by the way, not the way he intended. Mohg, the cocoon, and the least consensual abduction, in a game full of them hears what happens to Miquella while he's sleeping and trying to be born as a god. Mohg, Lord of Blood, demigod, chaos cultist, deeply unwell individual, hears about the sleeping golden child and thinks, that's my consort actually, and he just takes him, cocoon and all, drags the entire sleeping chrysalis into his blood-soaked, underground domain, and builds his own dynasty around this unconscious boy, announcing to his followers that he will become a god by pairing himself with Miquella, and that this constitutes a relationship. This is the Elden Ring lore, equivalent of someone printing a parasocial fancam, except instead of a TikTok edit, it's a blood-drenched underworld kingdom. The vibes are different, but the core dynamic, I have decided we are together, is exactly the same kind of delusional devotion. Mohg has constructed an entire theology of possession, an entire cosmological framework in which abducting a sleeping person and unilaterally declaring them your partner is not only acceptable, but divinely ordained. He has divine favor, he has followers, he has robes. He has a whole aesthetic going. He's completely insane. He is also, terrifyingly, not that different from several historical religious movements built on the idea that the object of devotion does not need to consent to being devoted to. The theological history of the world is full of Mohgs, people who took something beautiful and sleeping and unresisting and built a kingdom on it, who said this grace chose me, when what they meant was I chose this grace and now I will not be questioned, who dressed coercion in the language of divine appointment. The lore isn't subtle. Mohg is not a villain because he's scary. He's a villain because he's familiar. Miquella is asleep for all of this. He does not know. He cannot know. And it happens anyway. This is the first time in the essay we should feel genuinely bad. And the worst part, the detail that keeps me up at night, is that Miquella eventually escapes. He tears himself free of his own cocoon, leaving his arm behind, abandoning the body he was trying to transform, because apparently, even half-born is preferable to remaining in Mohg's possession. He chose incompleteness over captivity. And then, he kept going. The Shadow of the Erdtree, or Miquella goes full villain arc. Maybe, possibly, depending on your definitions. This is where the essay gets uncomfortable. This is where I have to say something I've been building towards since the beginning, and I'm going to say it directly. Miquella might be the most dangerous character in the game, not Marika, who shattered the Elden Ring, not Ranni, who killed a god, not Raiden, who held the stars. Miquella. Because what Miquella has that none of the others have is an ability so subtle, so complete, so structurally invisible that it barely registers as a weapon. He can make people love him. Not with spells, not with commands, not with the gross obvious compulsion of blood magic, or the brutal imposition of the two fingers divine law, but with something that functions exactly like genuine love, and is, in its effect, indistinguishable from it. The people around Miquella choose to devote themselves. They feel this choice as freely made, and we have every reason to believe they are right, and we also have every reason to ask whether freedom and compulsion are actually as different as we'd like them to be when one party has supernatural emotional magnetism and the other is just a regular person who wanted to be saved. This is the charisma problem. Political science, sociology, and religious studies have been arguing about it for decades. When a leader is genuinely beloved, when their followers genuinely feel free and fulfilled in their devotion, at what point does that become a form of power that demands ethical scrutiny? Is Miquella's love coercive because it's supernatural, or is it any different from the way any sufficiently compelling human leader reshapes the emotional landscape of everyone around them? Was he manipulating his followers, or was he just himself, and that selfhood happened to be magnetic? Does the distinction matter if the outcome is the same, people restructuring their entire lives around a single point of devotion? In Shadow of the Erdtree, Miquella discards his Empyrean flesh. He strips out his own compassion, his love, his mercy, the things that made him the saint figure his followers revered. He removes them deliberately, the way you'd remove a safety governor from an engine, because he has decided that those qualities are not assets, they are constraints. He took the thing that made him good, and he left it behind like luggage, because it was slowing him down. This is the scene in every ideological horror story, where we realize the movement was never actually about what it said it was about. And yet, he isn't wrong that the system needs to be destroyed. He isn't wrong that the Erdtree's order is a machine built on suffering. He isn't wrong that something has to change. He was never wrong about the diagnosis. He is terrifyingly, catastrophically, beautifully wrong about the cure. Mesmer, the son nobody talks about, or what it costs to be the wrong kind of divine. We need to talk about Mesmer. Mesmer the Impaler, Miquella's half-brother, the one made of fire and shadow, the one sent to conquer the land of shadow, while his golden sibling was safely cocooned and worshipped. The one whose serpent flames mark him as carrying something deemed cosmologically unclean. The one who was hidden. Marika had Mesmer, and then pretended she didn't. Sent him to do the brutal work of divine conquest, and then scrubbed his name from the Erdtree's official golden record. He is a demigod whose mother erased him. He is a son whose existence was inconvenient to the brand. The Erdtree is literally doing PR management. Yes, we have Miquella the Golden Saint, beloved of all, and also Millennia the Blade. Impressive if tragic. But the Fire Child with the snakes? No, that's not on the website. Move along. And here is the thing that makes me actually feel something. Sitting here at 2 am thinking about video game lore like it's the Iliad, which it is, it absolutely is. Mesmer does it. He goes. He fights. He builds the Shadowkeep. He does the conquest that the Golden Age required. He does it knowing he will not be celebrated. He does it knowing his mother has erased him. He does it anyway, and you fight him, and he is loyal, not to power, not to reward, but to a mother who does not acknowledge him, because the alternative, what? Rejection of the only family he has? The admission that his love was never returned? Is worse than servitude. Mesmer is every child who performed loyalty for a parent who had already decided they were the wrong kind of beloved. Every person who worked harder, fought harder, gave more, because they believed that if they just did enough, the rejection would reverse. This is not weakness. This is the cruelest trap a parent can set, making a child believe their love is conditional on performance, so the child performs forever, in hopes of finally earning what should never have been conditional in the first place. And in the context of Miquella's story, Mesmer is what Miquella could have become, the sibling who serves, the one who loves without receiving love in return, the one who does the violent work that the compassionate narrative requires. Except Miquella didn't choose that path, he chose the other one. Whether that makes him better or worse depends on things I don't have answers to. What Miquella teaches us about gods, selves, and the things we become. I started this essay saying Miquella is a boy. I was wrong. Or I was right, which is worse. He is a boy who looked at an unjust cosmos and decided to fix it, which is the most human impulse there is, and in pursuing that impulse became something that required discarding his humanity, which is also the most human outcome there is. He is the saint who built a church for the forgotten. He is the revolutionary who became the next authoritarian. He is the child who never got to grow up. He is the god who chose not to feel. He is the compassion that ate itself in order to survive. He is the question the game is actually asking. Underneath all the runes, and the golden order, and the shattering, can something that begins in genuine love remain loving through the process of acquiring power? Or does power necessarily transform love into its administrative function, into management, into control, into the benevolent certainty that you know what is best for everyone, and that this certainty justifies everything? The game doesn't answer this. It is too smart to answer this. It puts Miquella in front of you and lets you decide. Villain or savior. Monster or saint. Traumatized child or deliberate manipulator. Inevitable outcome of a broken system or active participant in its perpetuation. And the answer is yes, all of it. Every reading is true. Every interpretation is load-bearing. He is not one thing. He is the place where all those things collide and refuse to resolve, because that is what a person is, even when the person is a divine eternal child god, and an empty cocoon where he used to keep his future. You came for lore. You got theodicy. Should have read the thumbnail more carefully. You cannot play Shadow of the Erdtree and walk away with a clean moral verdict on Miquella. Anyone who does has missed something. The horror isn't that he might be evil. The horror is that he might be completely understandable. The horror is that every choice he made followed logically from the choice before it. The horror is that you can trace the line from the boy who wanted to save his sister to the god who abandoned his love, and find no single break in the chain, no one moment where you can say here is where he went wrong, because that's not how people go wrong. That's not how movements go wrong. That's not how anything goes wrong. It goes wrong in 1,000 small, comprehensible, justified steps, each one reasonable in context, each one a little further from where you started, until you look up, and you are somewhere you would never have chosen at the beginning, and you cannot point to the door you entered through. Miquella is not a warning. He is a mirror, and the problem with mirrors is that they are always right. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I need to lie down.